everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Blake's Books. Today I have another book review for you, and that is for Assassin's Creed Black Flag by Oliver Bowden. This is a novel in the Assassin's Creed series, of course, specifically adapting Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. So the Assassin's Creed books, at least a lot of them, I'm not sure that all of them are like this. In fact, I know all of them are not like this, but a lot of them are meant as novelizations of the video games, and this one is the novelization of course, the video game that shares a name with. This is the third Assassin's Creed book I have read. I love the Assassin's Creed video games, at least the ones I've played. I've played and finished all of them through Rogue, and I have started Unity, but I have not finished it. I haven't played it in a couple of years, or I've had it for a couple of years, but I haven't finished it. I think just something about, the shift in, the way the game is, it just doesn't click for me the same way as the older games, but I do love all of the games from 1 through Rogue. And Assassin's Creed Black Flag in particular is one of my personal favorites. And so I've been interested in reading the Assassin's Creed books, and this is the third one I've read. The other 2 I read were The Secret Crusade, which was the adaptation of Assassin's Creed 1, as well as some of the spin-off games, and the certain sections of Assassin's Creed Revelations, and then I read Renaissance, which was the adaptation of Assassin's Creed 2. And so I was excited to read this one because I don't read these super often, but I always am interested in reading them when I do because I love these games. And this one in particular is one of my personal favorites, so I was very much looking forward to re-experiencing this story in novel format. And of course, I enjoyed the other 2 books that I had read in the series, so I was expecting to enjoy it, but this one really kind of blew me away with how much I enjoyed it. I would say this is easily my favorite of the 3 that I have read. Much better book than I expected it to be. I mean, I expected to enjoy it, but it really was a lot better than I expected it to be. So, of course, to get into some good stuff of this book, which is the vast majority of what I have to say about it. First of all, if you've played Black Flag and you enjoyed it like I did, then, you probably will already know and have enjoyed the story, and that is still done well in this book. The story that is being told and the characters within it are well done and enjoyable. The way that the story is set up in this book is slightly different than the game. This book is split into 4 parts. Part 1 is, as far as I'm aware at least, entirely original. There is nothing in the video game, aside from a couple flashback sequences, I believe, that include anything from part 1 of this book, which entails like the first 130 pages or so. And then parts 2 through 4 are the events of the video game, with the exception of the very end, the last couple dozen pages are original stuff as well. But everything else is a direct adaptation of the game. So it is a little bit different from the game because you get some extra bits and pieces, but it does a very good job of adapting the video game. It tells mostly the same story. There's a few differences here and there, but mostly the same story, and that story I think is a good one. This story is about Edward Kenway, who is from England, leaves his wife in order to gain glory and money and wealth and all these things that he can bring back to give himself and his family a good life. And so he leaves to go to the Caribbean to become a privateer and then eventually a pirate. And of course, given that this is an Assassin's Creed book, you can expect that the Assassin-Templar conflict, which is present in Assassin's Creed, comes into this with these kind of 2 secret societies that are enemies of one another. And of course, he becomes very much involved within the Assassins, and all that kind of thing. And I think that the story here is well done. Of course, I enjoyed it in the game. I enjoy it in this book. I think it's well presented in this book. I think the way it's presented in this book is really cool because it's being told to you in first person. The other 2 Assassin's Creed books that I read were not this way, which I think made this one stand out a little bit more uniquely because this is being told to you by Edward, and the reader is taking the place of a character within the story. And so Edward has a very strong sense of voice, which I really enjoyed. That really matched his character well. The way that he told the story was interesting. and you really kind of get much more of a sense of who he is, get into his head a lot more, which I really enjoyed about it. And the character of Edward himself is really interesting. I really enjoy his arc throughout this story. One thing that I really enjoyed with those particular original sections of the book at the beginning and the very end is that you get to see, like, I don't want to get into spoilers too much with this, but he is in a similar place at both the beginning and end. Like, there's a lot of ways in which it ties together very nicely. And so you get to see the progression of his character arc when he's put into this kind of similar environment and similar situation. And there is like a stark contrast between where he is in his personality and his development at the beginning of the book versus the end of the book. And his arc throughout the book and the story, you know, in general, even the game, I think is really good. Because you get to see that progression of his character from being someone who, you know, just cares about the money and is willing to do whatever he can just to get more money so that, you know, he can become wealthy and all these things, to becoming someone who is, I guess not that shallow, just to put it in that way, like become someone who has a person to him, someone who becomes a person of principle and a person of integrity, and things like that, becomes a person who cares very deeply about other people, and things like that, which I really enjoyed. I also think this book has some great action. Of course, with this being like a pirate story, you get plenty of action, and also it being Assassin's Creed, you get plenty of action as well, of course. This book doesn't delve as heavily into like the Assassin-Templar conflict as some of the other ones do. For example, The Secret Crusade delved rather significantly into that because that was just the entirety of Altair's story was about that conflict, basically. Or at least it was in Assassin's Creed 1 and, you know, elsewhere as well. This one, it goes much more in the background. Like, it is a way for him to progress his character arc, but he spends a significant portion of this book not being even aware of the Assassin-Templar conflict and kind of just being drawn into it by accident. And so that is not necessarily prevalent in this story, but it is well done, and it kind of serves more as a way, like I said, to further his character arc and to help develop him a little bit more, rather than him just being like, yes, I'm going to be an assassin or whatever, which I really enjoy about this story. It makes it a little bit more unique within the series. I also think that this book, one thing that I didn't mind necessarily, but one thing I was disappointed by with the other two Assassin's Creed books I read, especially Renaissance, A Secret Crusade kind of got away with it because it was drawing on several different sources, like, you know, Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed Revelations, the spin-off games. But one thing that I was slightly disappointed in with those books was that it was a very direct adaptation. You get nothing except what is present in the games, with perhaps a few little things here and there. This book adds a significant amount to the story of the game. Like, this is the way that I think a novelization should be done, where, like I said, you have a large portion of the book, like a quarter of the book at least, is fully original as far as I know. At least it's not present in the game. It might be present in other material. I don't know if they did any other tie-in material for this book or anything like that, but at the very least it is not the story of the game. Like, a whole quarter of this book is just new, which I love. That is what I want out of a novelization. I want it to tell the story of the original source material, of course, and I want it to do it well. But what I really want is for it to expand on it, to include things that the original material didn't or couldn't, in order to further develop the story, further develop the characters, in order to just add something of value to the story. And this absolutely did that, and it made the emotional payoff of this book, especially in the end, so much more impactful. The ending of this book almost had me in tears because of the way that was handled in particular. And the story itself already was pretty emotionally impactful to me, and then the things that were added on top of it with Edward's life in England, with his family, with his wife, and everything, just made it so much more impactful and made the story so much better because of that. And so I really appreciated that about this book as well. I think even if you don't necessarily enjoy this book as a story, I think as a novelization, it hits like everything that it needs to. It tells the story well, it adapts it well, but it also adds a lot of new things that really enhance the story. So as far as negative things with this book, the only thing I would say is that towards the end of the book, I think that the way that the Assassin-Templar conflict, it is my least favorite part of the story. It's implemented well, it serves a good purpose, but I think that the parts of this book I loved were the characters, the character interactions, the more personal side of Edward's life, the pirating side of his life, not so much the Assassin-Templar stuff, which is kind of unfortunate considering that this is an Assassin's Creed book, and that's kind of the big thing with the series. It's still well done, it's still well presented, it still contributes to the story in a meaningful way, but I just personally kind of checked out a little bit at some of those points. I was like, this isn't quite as interesting to me, but it's still well done, and it, like I said, contributes to the story well. It's just the part of the book that I don't love quite so much. Other than that, I really loved this book all the way through, which surprised me. Like I said, I expected to enjoy this book, but I figured I'd kind of put it around where I put Secret Crusade and Renaissance. I think I gave both of those like a 7.5 or 8 out of 10, somewhere in there. You know, something that really, was good, really enjoyable, but not quite amazing. This I would give like a 9.5 out of 10. I really loved this book. And it really impressed me a lot more than I expected to. It was a great way to revisit this story that I love, and also a great way to expand upon it and make me appreciate it even more. And I expect that if I ever go back and replay Assassin's Creed Black Flag, the things that are presented in this book will probably make those story events have a lot more impact. Which I think is also one of the great things about a novelization, is it can add things that when you go back and experience the original work, it can just add so much to that experience. And I think this book absolutely did that. Not only a great success as a book and as a story, but also as a novelization. So I really appreciate that about it. So that pretty much wraps up this review. Let me know in the comments if you've read Assassin's Creed Black Flag, what you thought of it, if you've even played the game and enjoyed it, if you have played the game and read the novelization, if it also kind of enhanced it for you like it did for me. If you read any of the other Assassin's Creed books, let me know what you thought of those as well. Like I said, I have read the other two that I talked about, Secret Crusade and Renaissance. I think both of those have reviews on this channel if you're interested. I'd like to read more of them. I am especially interested in checking out stuff like the rest of the Ezio trilogy books, as well as Forsaken and a few other ones. But I do look forward to reading more Assassin's Creed books, because so far I've really enjoyed them. And hopefully more of them live up to this sort of level, because I think this really was a special kind of book for this series. So that is pretty much it for this video. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.